Hey, peace, everybody. Peace. Peace, brother. About to do a short lesson about Yeshua wasn't in the cloud of Sinai, so this should be a pretty easy one. You heard it from Eliyahu first. Let's see here. I'm just sharing the room. So this is showing Yeshua wasn't the one in the cloud. It's very easy. All right. All right, I'm gonna go to Exodus 24 and verse 10. Let me get this real quick. I'm gonna use my Bible real quick. Those of you who are raising your hand, I'm going to open up the room after I do this short lesson here. All right. So in Exodus 24 and 10, we often hear that this is Yeshua who we see on Mount Sinai. It says Exodus chapter 24 and verse 10, and they saw the God of Israel, and there was under his feet, as it were, the paved work of a sapphire stone, and as it were in the body of heaven in his clearness. And upon the nobles and upon the children of Israel he laid not his hand. They saw God and did eat and drink. People often have a misperception of what's going on here. They're actually seeing his feet through a paved work of sapphire because they're below it. Most people think that they're on top of the mountain and they're looking straight towards them, the God of Israel. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is they're actually looking up and they're seeing a paved work of sapphire and they're seeing his feet. They're seeing the bottom of his feet. This is similar to Ezekiel. Let me get Ezekiel 1 and I'll come back here. Ezekiel chapter 1, it says in verse 4, and I looked, behold, a whirlwind came out of the north and a great cloud and fire enfolding itself. And so we know in the book of Exodus, right, that the cloud descended upon Mount Sinai. Within it was the glory of the Lord. It looks like an appearance of fire inside the cloud, right? And it's a dark cloud and they thunderings and lightnings, and they hear the voice of God come out of the cloud, right? Ezekiel 1:4, and I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, and a great cloud, and fire enfolding itself, and the brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber out of the midst of the fire. See, you can see through this cloud that there's a bright light in it. It's the appearance of amber, which is like it's really like the color of molten lava or an appearance of fire. Verse 5, also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of four living creatures, and this was their appearance. Now he gives the appearance of the four creatures that emerge. And let me go down. This is Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 16. The appearance of the wheels in their work was like unto the color of beryl, and they had one likeness in their appearance, and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. Now I'm going to skip down. Verse 22. And the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creatures was the color of a terrible crystal stretched forth over their heads above. This is the firmament that looks like the paved work of sapphire in its clearness. Okay. And under the firmament were their wings straight, and the one toward the other. Everyone had two, which covered on his sides, and everyone two, which covered at his side in their bodies. And they went, and I heard the noise of their wings like the noise of great waters, as the voice of the Almighty, the voice of speech, as the noise of an host. When they stood, they let down their wings. And there was a voice from the firmament that was over their heads when they stood and had let down their wings. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness of the appearance of a man above it. And I saw as the color of amber, as the appearance of fire, round about within it, from the appearance of his loins even upward, from the appearance of his loins even downward. I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about, as the appearance of a bow in the cloud. In the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. And when I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard a voice of one that spake with me. Let's go back to Exodus 24 and verse 10. Exodus chapter 24, let me start at verse 9. Then went up Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel. And they saw the God of Israel. And there was under his feet, as it were, paved work of sapphire stone, as it were the body of heaven in his clearness. This is the crystal, right? So let me get that. Look at this, Ezekiel chapter 1. Read this one more time. You know, I go a little slow at first, but then I'm going to pick it up. I just want this to be clear what they're seeing here. See, they're looking up through the firmament and they're seeing his feet, but they're not seeing his face. And this is important because he said, you will not see my face. So this firmament is a barrier, right? When you look in Ezekiel chapter 1, it says in verse 22, and the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creatures was as the color of a terrible crystal stretched forth over their heads. I'm going to read this out of the NET. Under the platform, their wings were stretched out, each toward each other. Each of the beings also had two wings covering his body. Verse 22. Over the heads of the living beings was something like a platform, glittering awesomely like ice, stretched out over their heads. Now, Exodus 24, verse 10. And they saw the God of Israel, and there was under his feet, as it were, the paved work of sapphire stone, and as it were, the body of heaven in its clearness. Now, watch this. Exodus 24, verse 10. NET. And they saw the God of Israel. Under his feet was something like a pavement made of sapphire, clear like the sky itself. So what's happening here is there's a firmament, a platform of some type. You can see through it, but the throne itself looks like sapphire, and they can see his feet. And the rest looks like glittering ice, something like the sky in its clearness. When you look at what happens here in verse, this is where people get confused. They saw God and did eat and drink, but they hadn't approached to go up. See, only Moses gets up and Joshua gets up with him, but Moses is the one who God calls into the cloud. So when it says they did eat and drink, people would try to teach you that they were like sitting there eating with God right in front of his face. And this is not what's happening. They're separated. They're on the earth and he's suspended in the heaven. They're not even up there eating with him. They sat there and ate and drank in this certain location as they ascended the mount. Now, in verse 12, it says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Come up to me into the mount." You see, so there was some gentlemen the other day. I think they were part of the Israel of God, Jacob and Jared and Robert and other people. And the way that they interpret this and they teach their followers is that they were eating and drinking with the God of Israel. See, they've misled people from the true understanding of what's happening. You often see that these teachers misinterpret and mislead people from what's actually happening. They are not eating and drinking with God. This is why the Lord says unto Moses, Come up unto me in the mount. See, they're not with him. And be there, and I will give thee tables of stone and a law and the commandments which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. So let's go to Exodus 24:1. And he said unto Moshe, Come up unto the Lord, thou, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel, and worship you afar off. See, when they're eating and drinking, they were afar off. They were still down the mount a ways. So they're looking up the mount. They're not seeing the Most High's face. What they're seeing is through the firmament. Verse 2, And Moshe alone shall come near to the Lord, but they shall not come nigh, neither shall the people go up with him. And Moses came and told the people all the words of Yah. So it would be ridiculous to think that Moshe went against what Yah had said here. Ridiculous. They weren't eating and drinking with the God of Israel. See, this is the issue. They were further down, afar off, a long way away. They had not ascended to the top of the mount to enter into the cloud. Okay. Now, this is Exodus 24, verse 13. Moses rose up in his ministry, Joshua, and Moses went up into the mount of God. And he said unto the elders, Tarry you here for us until we come again unto you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have any matters to do, let him come unto them. And Moses went up into the mount, and a cloud covered the mount. Now, so why is the cloud covering the mount? Because he goes up high into the mountain, and then the cloud descends upon the top. So now he's being enveloped in the cloud. Now that you know this cloud here, we'll get a little bit into this a little later on. So Moses goes into the top of the mount. It says, and the cloud covered the mount, and the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai. What is the glory of the Lord that abode upon Mount Sinai? This is Ezekiel. We just read it. So I'm going to touch it. I'm going to come back. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 28. Like the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds after the rain, this was the appearance of the surrounding brilliant light. Let me get the KJV. The appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spake with me. So this in Exodus 24:16 is the glory of the Lord that abode upon the Mount Sinai. And the cloud covered it 6 days. And the seventh day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. So now you see that the Lord calls to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. And the sight of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. So all the children of Israel could see was the appearance of a devouring fire within the cloud, right? 18. And Moses went up into the midst of the cloud and gat him into the mount. And Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. So Moses was there speaking to God 40 days and 40 nights. And this, when Moses was descending with the law, was him descending from heaven as the God and King of Israel, according to Philo. Watch this. This is the life of Moses, the works of Philo on the life of Moses, book 1, verse 157 and 58. For God possesses everything and is in need of nothing, but the good man has nothing which is properly his own. No, not even himself, but he has a share granted to him of the treasures of God, as far as he is able to partake of them. And this is natural enough, for he is a citizen of the world, of which account he is not spoken of as been enrolled as a citizen of any particular city in the inhabitable world, since he verily appropriately has for his inheritance not a portion of the district, but the whole world. 158. What more shall we say? Has he not also enjoyed an ever greater communion with the Father and creator of the universe? So this is talking about Moses being thought worthy, being thought unworthy of being called by the same appellation, for he also was called the God and King of the whole nation. And he is said to have entered into the darkness where God was, that is to say, into the invisible and shapeless and incorporeal world, the essence which is the model of all existing things, where he beheld things invisible to mortal nature. For, having brought himself and his own life into the middle as an excellently wrought picture, he established himself as a most beautiful and godlike work, to be a model for those who were inclined to imitate him, meaning to imitate Moses. And happy are they who have been able to take, or have even diligently labored to take, a faithful copy of this excellence into their own souls. For let the mind above all other parts take the perfect appearance of virtue. And if it cannot be, at all events, let it feel unhesitating and unwavering desire to acquire that appearance. Now, an appearance of glory. This should remind you of Hebrews 1 and 3, right? So there Philo is saying, and the ancient rabbim has also talked about this, about Moses being called the God and King of the whole nation. Little G-O-D. Now, in Deuteronomy 4:15 of the Torah, the people did not see the face of God. They didn't see a similitude. What they saw was a bright light. Let me get this. This is Deuteronomy chapter 4, and I'm going to start reading at verse 15. Take therefore good heed unto yourselves, for you saw no manner of similitude on the day that the Lord spake unto you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire, lest you corrupt yourselves and make any graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female. You see, they didn't see a likeness of any male or female. What they saw was amidst of a fire. Verse 17, the likeness of any beast that is on earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air, the likeness of anything that creepeth on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath of the earth, unless thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun, the moon, the stars, and even the host of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God hath divided unto the nations under the whole heaven. But the Lord hath taken you and brought you forth out of the iron furnace, even out of Egypt, to be unto him a people and inheritance unto this day. Now, this is Deuteronomy 4. I'm going to go down to verse 24. For the Lord thy God is a consuming fire, even a jealous God. Let me read this in the NET. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire. He is a jealous God. This is Deuteronomy 9:3. Understand therefore this day that the Lord thy God is he which goeth over before thee as a consuming fire. He shall destroy them. He shall bring them down before thy face, and thou shalt drive them out and destroy them quickly, as the Lord hath said unto thee. Should remind you of Exodus 24:17. And the sight of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. See, this is what the children of Israel saw, was a devouring fire. But Moses, when he entered into the cloud, he was in the spirit. He was able to see invisible things made visible, the hidden things uncovered, made plain. This is where he received the law, the Torah that comes down from heaven. When you go to, watch this, when you go to this cloud in Exodus 14, 19, 16, 10, 24, 16, 34, 5, Numbers 12, 5. This is when they have provoked the Lord because they didn't want to hear him, remember, or see him. They stood afar off from the mountain. So then God said he was going to send his angel before them, Exodus 23. So in Exodus 23, God then chooses an agent who he's going to send to go before the children of Israel. He places his name in this agent, right? This agent then leads the children of Israel. And according to God, this is Exodus 14:19. Let me read this. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came to pass, the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, it was a cloud of darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near to the other all night. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back and be strong between the night, and it made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. This is Exodus chapter 16, verse 10. And it came to pass, as Aaron spake unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in a cloud. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, At even you shall eat flesh, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and ye shall know that I am the Lord your God. This is Exodus chapter 34. There's a lot of these, but I'm going to keep it simple. There's a whole lot of these. Exodus 34:5. And the Lord descended in a cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name of the Lord. See, this one is acting on behalf of Yahweh, and it's saying here in the Torah, Moses is saying Yahweh, but this angel isn't Yahweh, right? This angel that's been called Yahweh, or the appellations being put to it, stood there and proclaimed the name of Yahweh, right? So what's happening here? In Exodus 23, watch this. In Exodus 23, God said in verse 20, "Behold, I send my angel before you to keep you in the way and to bring you into the place I have prepared. Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries, for my angel shall go before thee." So they do something very interesting in the Torah. And those of us who have been a part of these other lessons, we're able to accurately discern what's going on here, right? What's happening is the Lord has, when he has commissioned somebody or sent somebody, the scripture, the text itself will say Yahweh, even though it's actually an agent. It's actually one that's been commissioned. The reason why is because this one has the name or the spirit of Yahweh in it. So as a quick example is Isaiah chapter 7, right? I'll give you a quick example so there's not confusion here. This is something they actually do throughout Genesis to Revelation. And the commissioned one speaks in first person as well, right? But anyway, this is Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 1. "It came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, that Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Ramah, king of Israel, went toward Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it." So, verse 3, "Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, Go forth now to meet Ahaz." So, see, God is sending Isaiah to meet Ahaz. Now, from this point on, Isaiah is Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, according to the narrator. This is the same thing that Moses, the narrator, did in the Torah. Whenever the angel had the name or was commissioned, had the Spirit put in him, sent forth before the children of Israel, the narrator would put the Lord after that. The Lord said this, the Lord came down, the Lord was doing this. But look here in Isaiah chapter 7, verse 10. Now remember, Isaiah is the one who went to Ahaz, but look at what the narrator does. Isaiah 7:10. "Moreover, the Lord spake again unto Ahaz, saying, Ask thee a sign of the Lord thy God." Now, why is the Lord saying, "Ask a sign of the Lord thy God"? See, you have two Lords, and this is, but the one Lord is Isaiah, and Isaiah is speaking for the Lord God. But the narrator there is putting the Lord, moreover, the Lord spake unto Ahaz, saying, because of verse 3, where it said, "Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, Go forth now to meet Ahaz." See, he's been commissioned. This is the same thing you see happening back there in Exodus, the 34th chapter. And I'll read it again and it should make sense to you now, right? Exodus 34th chapter. Exodus 34:5, look. "And the Lord descended in the cloud and stood with them there and proclaimed the name of the Lord." See, it's the same thing you see in Isaiah 7:3, Isaiah 7:10. Same thing you see happening in Exodus 23 and Exodus 34. And this is why people get lost, because they think that it's the Lord himself doing this, but it's not the Lord himself doing it. And it sure isn't Yeshua or Jesus. So now I'm going to show you that an easy way to show people that it's not Yeshua, because Yeshua is not the one who speaks out of the cloud, which is a big problem for a lot of people. Now let's go back to Exodus 24. Now pay attention. Remember Exodus 24:1. And he said unto Moses, Come up unto the Lord, thou. Who is saying that? And he said unto Moses, Come up unto the Lord. Well, we just read in Exodus 23, "Behold, my angel, I put my name in him." All right. So think about that for a minute. Now, when you get to Verse 7, and he took the book of the covenant and read it in the audience of the people, and they said, all that the Lord have said, will be obedient and do it. Then we're going to look at this, verse 15. And Moses went up into the mount, and a cloud covered the mount, and the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days, and the seventh day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. So Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh is calling unto Moses out of heaven, out of the midst of the cloud. 17. And the sight of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on the top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Israel. Now watch this. And Moses went into the mount of the cloud and gat him up on the mount. So the voice spake out of the cloud to Moses. Now let's go to, this is where people would say that's Jesus, right? Well, it can't be Jesus because Jesus has the same experience on what people call Mount Tabor. So this is Luke chapter 9, verse 28. Watch what happens here. Luke chapter 9 and verse 28. And it came to pass about 8 days after these sayings, he took Peter and John and James, and he went into the mountain to pray. And as he prayed, the fashion of his countenance was altered, and his raiment was white and glistening. And behold, there talked to him two men, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory, and spake of his decease, which he should accomplish at Jerusalem. But Peter and they that were with him were heavy with sleep. And when they were awake, they saw his glory and the two men that stood with him. And it came to pass, as they departed from him, Peter said unto Yeshua, Master, it is good for us to be here. And let us now make 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah, not knowing what he said. While he thus spake, there came a cloud and overshadowed them. Now, doesn't this sound familiar? A cloud overshadowed them. Then came a cloud and overshadowed them, and they feared as they entered into the cloud. Meaning, there's one of two things happening here. I think that they're ascending, but it could easily be that it came down upon the mountain. Doesn't matter. The point is, look at 35. And there came a voice out of the cloud saying, this is my beloved son, hear him. And when the voice was past, Jesus was found alone, and they kept it close and told no man in those things, no man in those days, any of those things which they had seen. In another one, it says in the vision, because they saw something. Now, this here, they saw something when they entered into the cloud. Now, how can that be Jesus? In Exodus 24, when Jesus, according to Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 15 through 18, is the prophet like Moses. And Moses was not the person in the cloud. And the voice of Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh called Moses into the cloud and spake with him. And here, the prophet like Moses in Luke chapter 9 is not the one in the cloud. They enter the cloud, and there came a voice out of the cloud saying, this is my beloved son, hear him. That cannot be Jesus on Mount Sinai. It can't be Jesus in the pillar. Jesus is the one who is like Moses. See, watch this. This is Second Peter chapter 1, 17 and 18. Watch what happens. Second Peter chapter 1, verses 17 and 18. For he received from God the Father honor and glory when there came such a voice to him from the excellent glory. What was the excellent glory they saw? They didn't say it in Luke 9, did they? They saw the likeness of the glory of God. This is what they mean, the voice, such a voice to him from the excellent glory. This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. Let me show you something here. This is the NET. For he received honor and glory from God the Father when that voice was conveyed to him by the majestic glory. See, isn't that a difference? The voice was conveyed to him by the majestic glory. This is my dear son in whom I'm well pleased. You know who else saw that glory? Stephen saw that glory before he was murdered. This is Acts chapter 7, verse Acts chapter 7, verse 53. Who had received the law by the disposition of angels and have not kept it. When they heard these things, they were cut to their heart and mashed on him with their teeth. But he, being full of the Holy Spirit, looked up steadfastly into heaven and saw the glory of God and Yeshua standing on the right hand of God. And he said, Behold, I see the heavens opened and the Son of Man standing on the right hand of God. Now you see there, he says, I saw the glory of God and Jesus standing on the right hand of God. Now watch this. This is Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 26. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above it, and I saw as the color of amber, as the appearance of fire, round about within it, from the appearance of his loins even upward, from the appearance of his loins even downward. I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about, as the appearance of the bow, that's the rainbow, that is in the cloud in the day of rain. So was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. See, this was the appearance of the glory of the Lord. Now, watch this. This is Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 2. Then I beheld, and lo, a likeness as the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his loins even downward fire, and from his loins even upward as the appearance of brightness as the color of amber. Well, what is this? Verse 4. Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 4. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain. See, what he saw in Ezekiel 1, he saw in Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 2, and Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 4. And what did he see? The glory of the God of Israel. This is, watch this. All right. This is Ezekiel chapter 10, verse 19. I'm going to start at verse 18. Then the glory of the Lord departed from off of the threshold of the house and stood over the cherubims. And the cherubims lifted up their wings and mounted up from the earth in my sight. When they went out, and the wheels also beside them, and everyone stood at the door of the east gate of the Lord's house, and the glory of the God of Israel was over them above. This is the living creature that I saw under the God of Israel by the river of Kibar, and I knew that they were the cherubims. You know, in Acts 7, he sees the Merkabah and Yeshua standing beside the Father. Acts 7, verse 55. And he saw it in a vision because, no one else sees it. All these are visions. I want to say any vision of God the Father is a vision. They're not seeing him corporally. They're seeing him in the spirit being filled with the Ruach, right? So it says right here in Acts 7, verse 55. And he, being full of the Holy Spirit, looked up steadfastly into heaven and saw the glory of God and Yeshua standing on the right hand of God. Standing on the right hand of who? The God of Israel. See, shows you again, Yeshua is not the God of Israel, which people want to keep making him. But Stephen saw the glory of the God of Israel over above him, just like in Ezekiel chapter 10, verse 19. The Ancient of Days in Daniel chapter 7. And Isaiah saw him in Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne high and lifted up. His train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one of them 6 wings, and twain covered their face, and twain covered his feet. With twain he did fly, and one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the doorpost moved at the voice of him, and cried, and the house was filled with smoke, or a cloud. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am done, because I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Yeah. He saw that same thing back there in Exodus 24, 10 and 11. That same thing in Exodus 7. That same thing in Ezekiel 1, Ezekiel 8, and Ezekiel 10. The same thing John saw in Revelation chapter 4. Look at this, Revelation 4, 1. And I looked, and behold, a door was open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, which said, Come up hither, I will show you thee the things that which must come hereafter. And immediately I was in the Spirit. This is why when I read Philo, and Philo said that Moses went into the dark cloud, Philo said that he beheld the invisible things. What does he mean that he beheld the invisible things? Look here, he says, For he was called the God and King of the whole nation, and he is the one who entered into the darkness where God was, that is to say, into the invisible and shapeless and incorporeal world, the essence, which is the spirit, right? Which is the model of all existing things, and he beheld things invisible to mortal nature or mortal eyes. This is why they're all seeing it in the spirit. Isaiah chapter 6, 1, he saw it in the spirit. Luke, they were in the spirit, they saw a vision. Ezekiel 10, 8, 1, every time he was in the spirit. Daniel chapter 7, in the dream, in the vision of the night, he saw the Ancient of Days. Stephen, being filled with the Holy Spirit, looked up into heaven and he saw something invisible, which no one else could see. And what did he see? The glory of the God of Israel, and Yeshua standing at the right hand of that glory of the Lord, the appearance of the fire from the loins upward, even from the loins downward, the appearance of the glory of the Lord, a devouring fire, you know, a consuming fire. Now, when you look at 2 Peter chapter 1, now pay attention to this again. In 2 Peter 1 in the King James Version, it says, for he received, verse 17, for he received from God the Father honor and glory when there came such a voice to him from the excellent glory. See, people get confused about what this is, but they saw two glories. Do you remember? They saw Yeshua transfigured, which is one glory, and they saw another glory. Now, in 2 Peter 1:16, it's the same thing that Stephen saw. In 2 Peter 1:16, he says, for we have not followed cunningly devised fables when we made known unto you the power and coming of the Lord Yeshua the Messiah, but were eyewitnesses of his majesty. You see how they use the word majesty there in the King James Version? The eyewitnesses of his majesty is talking about the transfigure when he shone, right? Verse 17, for he received from God the Father honor and glory. See, that emanation was coming from the Father himself and was resting upon him like the sun shines upon a man's face. It wasn't something that came from the inside out. It was something that came from the outside and christened him, right? Or anointed him. It's like with Moses. When Moses went to talk, it said he came down and he did not know his face was shining. Well, how come Moses didn't know his face was shining? But he had been in the presence of the glory. And when he left, he was still shining like a light. He was illuminated. The outside was shining. This is what's happening to Luke. When you look in 2 Peter 1:17, it says, for he received of God the Father honor and glory when there came such a voice to him from the excellent glory. This is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. Now let me show you what they did here. This is the NET, verse 17. For he received honor and glory from God the Father when that voice was conveyed to him by the majestic glory. This is my dear Son in whom I am delighted. When this voice was conveyed from heaven, we ourselves heard it, for we were with him in the holy mountain. Now, doesn't that remind you of Exodus 24? All right. Now, this word Matt in 2 Peter 1:16 in the King James Version, that last word is we were eyewitnesses of his majesty, which is meg autos, mega autos. And then when you look in 2 Peter 1:17, the excellent glory, that first word excellent is mag op ripos, right? So it's just a different form of the same word. It's speaking of what they were seeing, right? They also saw a glory of Moses and a glory of Elijah, who appeared to him in glory and told him what he would have to suffer in Jerusalem. So they saw the majesty of Moses, the majesty of Elijah, the majesty of Messiah, and the majesty of the Father. When you go to Matthew 17, look at Matthew 17, verse 1. And after 6 days, Yeshua taketh Peter, James, and John his brother, and bringeth them up into a high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. See, this, they're seeing his glory, his majesty, right? Verse 3, and behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elijah talking with him. Then answered Peter and said unto Yeshua, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the midst of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear you him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face, and they were sore afraid. Now, let's go to Mark 9. This is Mark chapter 9. I'm going to pick it up at verse. Hold on 1 minute. Mark chapter 9, verse 2. After 6 days, Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John, leadeth them into a high mountain, apart by themselves, and was transfigured before them, and his raiment became shining, exceedingly white as snow, and as no fuller on the earth can white them. And there appeared unto him Elijah and Moses. They were talking with Yeshua. Peter answered and said unto Yeshua, Master, it is good for us to be here, and let us make 3 tabernacles. Now, verse 7. And there was a cloud overshadowed them, and a voice came out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, hear you him. And suddenly, when they looked round about, they saw no man any more save Yeshua, only with themselves. And as he came down from the mountain, he charged them that they should tell no man what they had seen, till the Son of Man be risen from the dead. So Luke is the one who gives us the fullest account of this situation. And there was even more to it than we received, right? Now, because there were some things that weren't supposed to be uttered, like in the book of Revelation when John was looking, was in heaven in the spirit, right? And he said, I heard things which is not for me to speak. So they didn't say everything of what happened. Luke gives the fullest account. And it may be Luke where he tells us that they were in a vision when they entered into the cloud, right? Now, I'm going to get Job 36. I'm going to bring this lesson to an end, right? But I wanted to share those things to make it easier for you to understand what's happening. Now, this is Job 36:32. It says, I'll start at verse 30 or 29. Also, can any understand the spreadings of the clouds or the noise of his tabernacle? You see that? Can any understand the spreading of the clouds or the noise of his tabernacle? So why do you think that it said Moses made the tabernacle from the things which he saw? Let me get that real quick. In Hebrews. See, he saw the Most High's tabernacle. This is Exodus 25, verse 40. Watch this. Exodus 25, verse 40. See, they don't give us all this in one breath. You have to seek these things out, right? Exodus 25:40. And look that thou make them after their pattern, which was showed thee in the mount. See, God showed Moses something in the mount. He showed him the pattern of the tabernacle, of the golden candlestick, of the showbread, of the ark of the covenant, of the curtains, of the linens. He showed him all these things. What do you see in the book of Revelation? He showed John. He showed John the tabernacle in heaven, the temple in heaven. We read about it, man. It's all of it's there. This is Revelation and 15 verse 6. And the seven angels came out of the temple, having the seven plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, having their breasts girded with golden girdles, because they're priests. And one of the four beasts gave unto the seven angels seven golden vials full of wrath of God, who liveth forever and ever. And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God. See, uh, Isaiah saw the temple of God in heaven in Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1. This is the same thing Moses was in, same thing John is in. Do you see? It's the same thing that they're all seeing in the spirit. In verse 8, it says, the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God, because he's a consuming fire, right? And from his power, and no man was able to enter into the temple till the plagues of the seven angels were fulfilled. Now, they have an altar of incense in the heavens too. And we know that because of Revelation 14, right? Revelation 14, if I'm thinking correctly. And the angels sing, right? But boy, I'm not even going to go into David's tabernacle. But anyway, remember we brought the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, and there was a tabernacle there before the temple was built. It was David's tabernacle. And there the choir sung day and night. But anyway, I wonder who showed him that. Revelation 14:2. And I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and the voice of great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps, and they sung as it were a new song before the throne, before the beast, the elders. No man could learn save him, etc. Now, let me grab another verse real quick. This is Revelation chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. And to another angel that came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints in the golden upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. Yeah. So let me go back to Exodus 25 and 40. And I'll start reading a little above it. Then I'm going to get another scripture and fall back. This is Exodus chapter 25. And I'm going to start reading at verse 31. And thou shalt make a candlestick of pure gold, of a beaten work with the candlestick made, his shaft and his branches, his bows and his knops. His flowers shall be of the same. 6 branches shall thou be. So that's the candlestick. Tells him to make the ark of the covenant. Um, tells him how to make the brazen altar, the outer veil, the ephah, and the breastplate, the holy mitre, the consecration, and the table of showbread, and the altar of incense. See? Now look at what it says here in Exodus 25 and verse 39 and 40. And of a talent of pure gold shall he make it with all these vessels, and look that thou make them after their pattern, which was showed you in the mount. See, he's he got the pattern from what he saw in heaven. This is how the writer of Hebrews understands it. You see, let's go to Hebrews chapter 8. All right. So this is Hebrews chapter 8. I'm going to start at verse 1. Hebrews chapter 8, verse 1. Now of the things which we have spoken, this is the sum. We have such an high priest who is set on the right hand of the throne of the majesty in the heavens. You see how he said he's on the right hand of the throne of the majesty? You see how the word there again is megalosanoi, which is just another, is divinity, greatness, that is divinity of God himself, majesty. It says he's on the right hand of the throne of the majesty. So see the throne, you remember the one that's on the throne? He has the rainbow above his head, hair like the pure wool, appearance of fire from his loins downward, appearance from his loins up. That's the majesty. That's what Peter's talking about when he said that. The voice that came from the the excellent glory, or the majestic glory that they were seeing. Right there. Hebrews 8 and 1. Of who is set on the right hand of the throne of the majesty in the heavens, a minister of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle which the Lord pitched, and not man. For every high priest is ordained to offer gifts and sacrifices, wherefore it is of necessity that this man have somewhat also to offer. For if he were on earth, he should not be a priest, seeing that there are priests that offer gifts according to the law, who serve unto an example of a shadow of heavenly things. Why is it a shadow of heavenly things? Because it's a copy. It's a copy of a pattern that Moses saw in heaven. As Moses was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle, for see, saith he, that thou make all things according to the pattern showed thee in the mount. Yeah. All right. So Job 36. I forgot to touch this. Job 36, verse 30. Behold, he spreadeth his light upon it, and covereth the bottom of the sea. What do I want? Let me see here. Yeah. Verse 32. With clouds he covereth the light, and commandeth it not to shine by the cloud that cometh betwixt. Let me get this in the NET. Make it help y'all understand this a little better. I'll start at 28. Which the clouds pour down in the shower all humankind abundantly. Who can understand the spreading of the clouds, the thunderings of his tabernacle? Whose tabernacle is this? That's not the tabernacle on earth, or the noise of his tabernacle. You remember his tabernacle came down and they heard lightnings and thunderings in the cloud? Also, who can understand the spreadings of the clouds or the noise of his tabernacle? Behold, he spreadeth his light upon it, and covereth the bottom of the sea. For by them judgeth he the people. He giveth meat in abundance. With clouds he covereth the light, and commandeth it not to shine by the cloud that cometh between. See, that's the dark cloud. Let me get this in another version. He covers his hands with the lightning and commands it to strike the mark, making it dark. It's 33. The noise thereof showeth concerning it that, let me go here. Yeah. The noise thereof concerning it, and the cattle also concerning the vapor. They've really mistranslated this pretty. In the Hebrew, it's these are voices and lightnings and thunderings. But for some reason, they're translating it, the noise thereof showeth concerning it. But that's really ra'ah, which is the shout of joy, and which sounds like a crash of thunder. This is what you're reading about in Revelation. It's bad. Most of them translate it very bad. The noise there. The thunder. Some people put it the thunder, but it's the noise of joy that sounds like thunder. That's what it's really talking about. But anyway, in Job 38, it says, if you look at it in the Hebrew anyway, Job 38:9, when I made the cloud, the garment thereof, and thick darkness as a swaddling band for it. So look at this in the, I'm going to pull this out of the, let me find a good one. When I made the cloud its robe and put thick clouds as bands about it, ordering a fixed limit for it with the locks and the doors, and said, so far you may come and no farther, and here the pride of your waves will be stopped. So in verse 13 he says, so that it might take a grip of the skirts of the earth, shaking all the evildoers out of it. It is changed like wet earth under a stamp, and is colored like a robe. And from the evildoers, their light is kept back, and the arm of the pride is broken. This is what he's really talking about, is the clouds you can't pass to see the vision or to approach unto the Lord, right? But Job's saying it kind of like in a riddle. Maybe that's why it's so hard for them to understand how to render that properly. Like it says there in 38 and 20. What is it? I wonder what it's, let me see what it says in the KJV. That thou shouldest take it to the bound thereof, and that thou shouldest know the paths to the house thereof. See, that house is the bayith. It's the temple of it. Anyway, but yeah, that's it. You Yeshua couldn't be the one speaking out of the cloud. That's the whole point. He couldn't have been the one in the cloud. See, and we can see this in Luke 9. We can see this in Matthew and in Mark and in 2 Peter, that very clearly Yeshua is not the one who speaks out of the cloud. To try to make Yeshua somehow the one on Mount Sinai, or to try to make Yeshua somehow the one in the cloud that speaks with the voice, would be to break scripture. You can't break scripture like that. There's no way you're going to receive a proper understanding and order, for God is a God of order, if all of a sudden you see something happening that makes no sense, inconsistency with everything else that we see that came before. And so this takes me to and raise your hand if you want to come up. I'm pretty much done now. But in Matthew, that's why we see this as well, right? And Jesus, when he was baptized, he went straightway out of the water, and lo, the heavens were opened unto him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and lighting upon him, and a voice from heaven saying, this is my beloved Son in whom well pleased. That's not Yeshua. Let's see, people are messing up bad. They're messing up bad with that false understanding. This is Mark chapter 1, verse 9. It came to pass in those days, Yeshua came up from Nazareth of Galilee, was baptized by John in the Jordan. And straightway coming out of the water, he saw the heavens opened and the Spirit descending like a dove. And there came a voice from heaven saying, Thou art my beloved Son, in whom I will please. Why do you think he said he saw the heavens open? What do you think he's seeing? When you look in Acts chapter 7, didn't Stephen see the heavens opened? You think everybody's seeing this? He told John, when you see. John saw it because John was filled with the Ruach from his birth. And John saw the Spirit descending and lightning upon Yeshua. That's why he was bearing testimony. Don't you think if everybody had seen it, all these tons and tons of people would have been like, we saw heaven open up and the Ruach was upon Yeshua. And I mean, John wouldn't have been the witness then, right? John is the one who bared witness to the truth. People aren't using their thinking caps, are they? You see this? This is Luke chapter 1, Luke chapter 2. Matter of fact, Luke chapter 3, verse 21. And when all the people were baptized, it came to pass, Yeshua also being baptized and praying, the heaven was opened, and the Holy Spirit descending in bodily shape like a dove abode upon him. And the voice came out of heaven and said, Thou art my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And Yeshua began to be about 30 years of age, the son of Joseph, the son of Heli. Since anyway, all right, yeah, peace. So that's it on that one. They weren't eating and drinking with the God of Israel. You know how they were able to even see that? They were able to see that because they had got the Spirit not long before. Because God came down and he took the Spirit that was on Moses and he put it on the 70 elders. Y'all remember that? Everybody else just saw a devouring fire inside of a cloud. I don't know, but hey, y'all can come up, man. We don't have to get deep into this subject. But that's it for that one. Yeshua wasn't in the cloud, period. Keep on walking down behind these guys and keep on finding out that what they're teaching isn't panning out. Peace, David. How you doing, brother?
Hey, peace. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Blessed, brother. Just getting in a little study tonight, man. Jacob and those guys we talked to, I think they're from the Israel of God, one of the biggest Hebrew Israelite churches. But Jacob and Jared and Robert, Vincent, and those guys. Was listening to them the other day, and they were talking about how they ate and drank with the God of Israel. And I was thinking, man, they don't know about this cloud. But I went back and I was looking further more and found some precepts to bring out what's actually going on there. So, because I think a lot of people make that mistake. They think that the Son of God was the God in the Old Testament that they saw on Mount Sinai, but that couldn't have been the one they saw on Mount Sinai, like a pre-existing Son of God. That was Yeshua, because of Mount Tabor, which people say, but on the mount where the cloud came and the voice spake to him, and they saw the excellent majesty. So there's no way he was that majesty that they saw.
I agree. I wanted to read real quick. I don't think I heard you reference this, but just for a reference for the room, in regards to one instance of how the glory of the Lord can be used, is in Luke 2, starting in verse 7. It says, "And she brought forth," talking about Mary, "her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a feeding trough, because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid." I think this is really an interesting verse in light of a lot of the teachings that we hear, especially, and it's not from all people that hold to a view of pre-existence, but especially from some of the bigger Trinitarian proponents, if you will, the fact that in this instance here, the glory of Yahweh and this angel appearing are tied together, when they would argue that the glory of Yahweh was a specific angel that became a human being. But here we have baby Jesus in a feeding trough, and yet here this angel is, and the glory of Yahweh is shining around about the shepherds in the field. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, brother, that ain't him, man. They've, in their attempt to try to place Yeshua and try to make him fit back there, they've taken those examples and perverted them. Because like I brought out in the lesson, right? And like you just brought out right there, it says an angel of the Lord, and the King James would say the angel, but appeared unto them, and the glory of the Lord shone around about them. And then there was all of a sudden a great multitude of angels that appeared, praising God in the highest. So you see, Yeshua is not the angel of the Lord or an angel of the Lord, and he's not the glory of God that they saw in the Old Testament. He's none of those things, and that's clear when you actually go through the Scripture and take your time and let the Ruach lead you into a fuller understanding.
All right, peace. Hey, peace. Can y'all hear me?
Hey, peace, brother Vinny. You're low, man.
I'm low. Okay, hold on one second. Is that better?
Nah, you're. Is he low, David?
Sounds like he's up in the clouds. Nah, it's pretty low for me though.
Yeah, brother. You ain't got the voice of thunder.
All right, is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, you gotta excuse me. I'm on the road right now, but yeah, man. We're gonna have to get you a tactical team, man, to surround your house tonight, man. 'Cause, you know you're gonna make a lot of people mad. Um, I don't know, man. You know, it's all in the air to me. It's really starting to seem like though that it's just one of those things that we held on to from westernized Christianity or even Roman Christianity. You could say all the way back in back then. Um, but we hold on to a lot of different traditions that we used to believe in when we first started getting involved in the Bible. I know I was born. I was kind of. I want to say I was born into it, but my family is like Bible Belt Christian, super down south Baptist, you know, uh, yeah, with the loud music and everything else, and people acting up, jumping up and down, flailing themselves all across the room. So, I mean, it's a lot of stuff we got to shake off, because man, I mean, it just seems pretty evident when you read and you look at it with an empty cup and be ready to receive whatever's there. Um, but yeah, I'll go ahead and yield out, man. But I came in at the last minute, but the last little bit that you were saying was pretty good.
Yeah, man. And they get confused by John 1:18, where it says, "No man has seen God at any time." but the only begotten Son who dwells in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. So I notice a lot of people that use that verse to say no one ever saw God in the Old Testament. So that who they were seeing was the Son the whole time, but that's not what John is saying. John is saying like no earthly eyes have ever beheld God. He's seen in the spirit. And that's why like in John 4:24, Yeshua says, you have to worship God in spirit and truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him, right? Because they didn't see any similitude in the day. And that's what Moses tells them in the Torah. He says, you didn't see a similitude of male or female or anything like in the heavens or on the earth or anything of that nature. He said, for your Lord is a consuming fire. And then when you look at what he says, a lot of people get confused in John 6 because Yeshua says, not that anybody has seen the Father, but they that are of God, he that is of God, he has seen the Father. So they believe that in the Old Testament, what was going on in the Elder Testament is that Yeshua was the one who always saw the Father, and they were always just seeing the Son. But that again, that's not what Yeshua is teaching. Right before that, Yeshua teaches them, and they shall no man can come to the Son lest the Father draw him. And then he says, for it is written in the law, right, or in the prophets, and they shall all be taught of God. And he pulls that from the prophet Isaiah in the 54th chapter, when it talks about the temple which God will build, and the foundations are carbuncle and all this other stuff. And then he says, and all thy children shall be taught of God. So what Yeshua is actually saying, and David brings it up all the time, in John 14:1, he says, you believe in God. He says, also believe in me. In my Father's house, in my Father's temple, right, there are many dwelling places. King James might say many mansions. But when you look at it down further, he said, but from henceforth, you have seen you do know the Father, and you have seen him. And he said, well, show us the Father. See, he didn't understand that Yeshua, through the works and the words, was showing them the Father, because he was revealing what he had seen from his Father. And see, this is I think John really gets people real twisted up because of the language that he uses. But in 2nd John, it makes it clear, I think, in the, or 3rd John, the 11th verse, he says, follow that which is good. He that has done evil has not seen God. And so like in 1st John 2, he says the same thing too. He says like, he that sinneth has not seen him and does not know him. So see, when you abide pure and holy, when you're separated from sin and iniquity and darkness, then you're a part of the light. And this is what Yeshua was telling his disciples. Like, when they saw him, they saw the Father, because he was sanctified. He was set apart by the Father. And so the light of the Father was able to shine through him. And that's what he was trying to tell them in John 10, when they didn't believe that he was sent from God or his authority didn't come from God, because he told them that, how do you say I blaspheme who the Father sanctified? That means set apart, who he made holy and sent, into the world, which is talking about basically to preach to them, right? So when you see what he's saying there again, he's saying the same thing over. It's like a kind of like a redundant thing he keeps doing. He keeps teaching them. Why do you not, the doctrine that I teach is not my own. He says, but if any man does the will of God, he shall know from where the doctrine is from. So he keeps telling them the same thing, that they got to be sanctified through the word. That's what he tells them in John 17. I have given them thy word. And then he says, um, and they are sanctified, right? Then he says about himself, I've sanctified myself. And so what he means by he's been sanctified by the word is that he's obeyed the commandment of his Father. And since he's done that, he's been sanctified and set apart. And because he's been set apart, now he is the image of the living God. And see, this is what he was coming to do, was to restore them back to the image of God so that you could see God. And you could see God in the images that he made, and his light would shine forth in those images he made. And Paul talks about all that. That's what Paul's going into a lot of that stuff when he talks about being renewed in the image of the one that created you in righteousness and true holiness. So he was trying to renew people back into the image of the living Father. And that's why he was saying, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, because he was in that renewed image that he was trying to lead them to be conformed to. That's why that's why Paul says in Romans 8, for example, he is the firstborn amongst many brethren, that they can be conformed, predestined or whatever, foreknown to be conformed to the image of his son. So that was always the image that he had made man in, was righteousness and true holiness and an innocence from the great transgression. Like it says in Psalm 19 down towards the bottom, when he so yeah, brother, they just, the way they're perceiving the word is not in a way that they can see God. Just because when you look at what he says in another place, he says, I have come into the world that those who cannot see, those that are blind can see, and those who see may be made blind. See, so what does he mean that I've come into the world that those who are blind can see, and those who say they can see are made blind? Because he had come to reveal the true character of the Father to them. And that's what it means to see God, is to see his true character in the images of the ones he has formed and fashioned, which is Adam, or man made after the similitude of God, not a corrupted image. And he was trying to let them know that this of what you see and hear, this is the incorruptible image of God that he was abiding in, which is separate from sin or darkness. And that's why he told him in John 3, that light has come into the world, but men love darkness rather than light. So see, there he's talking about the temple of the heart again, right? That the men don't come to the light lest their deeds should be reproved. So he said, out of the heart uh, comes forth the evil thoughts and the sedition and the adultery and all these things. So since their heart wasn't clean, they couldn't see God manifested in their bodies or in their images. And this is why he was telling them, for example, in another part, I'll say this, I'll fall back, I'm just going off the top of the head. When you look at what he says there, and talking about the pure in heart shall see God. That's what he told them. Well, who are the pure? Who are the pure in heart that see God? That goes back to like Isaiah 59, and it goes to another place of what Paul was talking about when he was telling us to be sanctified and cleansed by the Holy Spirit, and to be sanctified in the spirit and in the soul, in the purifying of the flesh. And so when the spirit is sanctified and made pure, you can see God manifest in the flesh. And this is why the Christ, he was manifesting God in the flesh by being obedient to the will of his Father. And so this was the mystery of godliness that it was talking about, how God is seen or perceived in the flesh, or how he was manifested in the flesh, speaking of Yeshua, because it's the godliness. He tells you right there, great is the mystery of godliness. Godliness is righteous piety, is what he's talking about right there. So when a man abides in righteous piety, God manifests in their vessels. And this is why he was, Paul in the 1 Corinthians 4 said, but we have this power, we have this glory in earthen vessels. But the glory he's speaking of is the glory of God. He's talking about the light of the Father in us, which shines forth through us by the glorious gospel of the living God. So all this language is this cryptic, and people get confused in the parable of a thing. and the allegory and the similitude of it, because God has said it in riddles, so that those who are not worthy cannot receive the teachings of the kingdom. Like Yeshua said, the mysteries of the kingdom of Elohim are given to you, but to those who are without, those that are without are the ones outside of the light, who are in the darkness. He said that seeing they may see and not perceive. That means they won't understand. Right? Or seeing they will see and not perceive, meaning perceive God. They won't see God. Then hearing they might hear and not understand, lest they come to me and be converted and their sins be forgiven them. What does he mean come to them? He means to that same image of righteousness and holiness, the image of the Father. And so, brother, just it's a little bit right there.
What you just said too is even they couldn't even hear him. You know, like especially like when they was even back with Moses. You know, when the thunder and the lightning was hitting, and they got scared. Moses was talking to them, and then you also saw that with like Paul when he got knocked off the horse and nobody could hear it. All they heard was thundering and lightning, and he heard what he was saying, you know. And then even when you touch back on it with Stephen and and the guys on the mountain that saw the glory of Elijah and Moses, um, you know, it's crazy because in Isaiah 28, you always say this about spirit of delusion. You know, he given them a spirit of delusion so that they couldn't see because of all the wickedness that they was in, you know. So man, that makes a lot of sense, and it really does tie into to what the rest of the text is talking about the pure at heart and being able to see and hear clearly. Um, I was trying to look and find this text in the old time. I can't remember which prophet it was, but it's talking about how in the future he would remove the veil from their eyes so that they'll be able to see clearly, and then also unstop their ears so that they can hear clearly. I forget where it's at, but man, it all definitely ties together. And yeah, I'll yield out.
I got a question. You're saying Jesus was not in the cloud. You talking about with Moses on the mountain? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, on Mount Sinai.
When Moses was up there for 40 days, 40 nights, and he didn't eat or
Yeah,
drink enough.
yeah. Hold up,
Right.
hold up, right quick. See, Vinny, that had happened with Daniel already. What happened with Paul, right? Like you brought up Acts 9:7, when he heard a voice, right? But he said the ones who were with me, like that they couldn't perceive everything Paul was perceiving. When you look in Daniel 10, um, look at Daniel 10:7, and I Daniel alone saw the vision. See, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, and they fled and hid themselves. You see, therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned into corruption, and I retained no strength. That's the same thing Paul's talking about, man. When you read, let me read this other account he gave. He says, was it Acts 22? He said, Acts 22:9. And they that were with me saw indeed the light and were afraid, but they heard not the voice of him that spake with me. See, he was in a vision, brother. Like Daniel in Daniel 10 and verse 7. These things are all happening in the Ruach. But yeah, you got it, Bible.